Welcome to the Trustbound podcast. Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Trustbound podcast. As I mentioned in our previous episode, I was and I am honored to have Tomás Uribe here with me. Welcome, Tomás. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thanks, Mo. Yeah, great to be here. Happy to get these interviews and this podcast started.
Awesome. Awesome. So this is the first episode that we do with a guest. As I mentioned in our previous episode and the introduction video, the goal of this podcast is to, you know, uh, bring people like Tomas here to just walk us through our stories of life and in life. And in this case, we are going to talk about how we met and how we ended up doing business together, although that was never the intention. I guess that's the trust bound way. So, Tomas, why don't you tell everybody listening a little bit about yourself, and I guess we can, I can tell my side of the story, and then you can tell your side of the story of how we met, and I guess how Trustbound ended up helping us becoming, uh, I guess, business partners. Because I don't feel this relationship as a you know provider slash agency
hmm
anymore.
Absolutely. No, yeah. Little bit of background on myself. So I am from Colombia. I've been living in New York for the past 13 years or so. Wife, two kids, and as an entrepreneur, I built Mavity. I incorporated the company several years ago, but Mavity, as is today, I'm the co-founder and CEO. We basically built what we call a creative operations platform. My experience previously, I'm a musician by trade, so as a composer, but also working in different things around engineering, but also having a company where I manufacture flight cases and pedal boards for the live entertainment industry. I started to work a lot as a creator, but also with different either creative agencies, clients, always kind of on that service providing side. But when I moved to New York, of course, I was exposed to a lot of different backgrounds of different people coming from product design, from photography, documentary filmmaking, different areas, and then blending, kind of like that melting pot of what is New York, but also around the disciplines that we all liked and really were pursuing. And that's why I started to really focus on working on the intersection between creativity and technology, and that kind of became explicit in multiple different ways. I worked at UN. I worked at a couple of different startups. I worked at an agency, a couple of agencies, and worked with different brands. And again, that evolution led to what today is Mavity, right? Again, and talking about like that creative operations, I we initially incorporated the company back with Guillermo Arenas, who's one of my best friends from school, from high school, all the way from Colombia. He lives in in Massachusetts, in Boston, and since then we've always been connected around talking and building different things. And then that's how through him we you and I got connected. I am I've been kind of like in this evolution again, like let's say Mavity V3 around product, but of course I work directly with a lot of with a lot of folks, with a lot of entrepreneurs, with a lot of businesses. So anyway, that's kind of like long story short of my background, but then how we got connected, you and I, through a common connection.
Yeah. It's funny because I met Guillermo through HubSpot. uh, he joined HubSpot on the CS team for the LATAM team, and i think he I think he joined in like 2016, right around by the time I joined. I can't remember,
Mhm.
but of course, being because I'm from Colombia myself, we're not from the same city. You and Guillermo
Mhm.
are from Bogota, and I'm from Medellin. But
Mhm.
living in Boston and living abroad, not just having that Latino connection, but that Colombian connection. It was
Yeah.
just like an automatic connection,
Mhm.
and then we started to get acquainted and have lunch together. And he loves soccer, I love
Mhm.
soccer, uh, and we just, I guess, the
Mhm.
friendship just naturally came to be. Um, and it's funny, and I feel that with any relationship that you do not force, just the natural aspects of that relationship just come to
Mhm.
be. And with Memo, it was never about you know what can I get from him or what can he get from me, but rather how can we help each other without like a secret agenda or a hidden
Mhm.
agenda underneath. And I think that those genuine relationships and genuine interactions with people um, end up over the years, I guess, giving you stuff that you didn't even ask for.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Mhm.
similar to my experience at HubSpot, like I was I didn't even know what HubSpot was,
Mhm.
and I started to know about HubSpot because of friends that worked there, and then I ended up at HubSpot because of a relationship, because of a referral, and then I ended up meeting Guillermo, and then I guess almost 10 years had to go by
Mhm.
to meet you. And what I
Yeah.
think is most curious is that when we met, it was never about business. It was never about like pitching anything,
Mhm.
but rather, I guess in my mind, just saying yes to
Mhm.
favor that Guillermo was asking from me. How
Yeah,
did
completely.
you
Mhm.
how did you feel when when we I guess when we were talking to Guillermo that ended up
Mhm.
us having an initial conversation? Like, I guess walk me
Well,
through your side.
I don't know. I mean, of course, we've always, besides being, of course, very, very close friends, I've always, kept, even though he exited the company, even though we incorporated the company together, but then he exited the company to focus on his other stuff. Of course, he's always been very close to our own kind of, progress endeavors. He's always helped from, his own like learning and experience. And he continues to provide any value whenever he can, right? So when I told him, I think he said just immediately, like, "Hey, you should actually talk to Mauricio." I think I mentioned specifically, like, "Hey, this is what we're thinking about go to market, get like go to market assets for creative operations, for creative teams, for designers." He said, "Hey, you should talk to Mauricio immediately," and he said, "Like, yeah, let's do it, right?" And of course, like, it's also like that trust component when somebody that's very close to you that knows and understands like what's your background, what are you going through, like what are your challenges, and it's not just like a superficial like introduction. You immediately just jump on the phone call and and take the opportunity, right? So that trust component will yield results, whether it's now or in 10 years, right? And yeah, I think that was kind of like the nature of just having a cool conversation, right? And of course, from there, it's a matter of like, all right, let's get to know each other more. Like, what are you building? What am I building? How can we build together? I think we can, each provide value to each other. So, and of course, like multiple things have come just because of that single, introduction and connection, right? And
Mm.
I think that's the way that business should be done. Even though today, because there's so much noise, it's so hard to like actually you know cut through that noise, right? And I think that's part of the reason why we're here and why we're doing this, not just this podcast, but everything that that goes behind itogai and like the whole core of trust and how you can build relationships and focus on that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And in my case, I guess I didn't properly introduce myself to people that are just tuning in. Um, I've been in startups and tech and then B2B my entire career. And even when I joined HubSpot, we were like 1,400 employees um, around the globe. But the LATAM team felt like a startup within the
Hmm.
sort of HubSpot international startup and the HubSpot scale up. Because
Hmm.
of course it wasn't the business that it is today. And I guess
Yeah.
my experience at HubSpot just um, taught me two things. It taught me that I absolutely love working in tech, and I
Hmm.
absolutely love like connecting with people. And with Memo pinged me, and he's like, "Hey, I would love to intro you to a great friend of mine that he's doing this and this." I was like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely." It's like anything that Guillermo needs or wants, I'm there.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember that in our first conversation, this was something that I told you before the conversation, actually, because it was funny. Memo pinged me on WhatsApp. He's like, "Hey, are you cool if like I intro you to this guy?" I was like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
sure." Like 5 minutes later,
Hmm.
he created a WhatsApp group, and in 2 minutes, you and I had already like a meeting
Yeah.
booked. And I
Hmm.
remember, like, I'll never forget, in that meeting, like you were a stranger to me, but
Hmm.
and I remember that I told you this. The fact that it was a referral from Guillermo, somebody that I I not only care deeply for, but I deeply trust. There
Hmm.
was this like implicit trust that was already generated,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Hmm.
and it was never about like selling something, buying something, but rather like helping a
Hmm.
mutual connection of a friend in common.
Yeah.
Um, just
Yeah.
help out, right? In
Yeah.
any
Completely.
way we can, and I think that that is the essence
Hmm.
of Trustbound. Um, so what ended up happening like after that? Like I would love to tell the audience a little bit more about like itogai
Yeah.
and what ended up
Yeah.
happening
Yeah. I
after that
agree.
initial call.
And also like the things that have happened ever since, right? Because of course, like I think in that initial conversations, we didn't even talk about itogai or anything about that. It was just like, hey, what's up? This is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing. Like, and that was it. And by that time, you were yeah, you were basically working at another place, right? So I'm assuming also kind of like the mindset was in another thing. But now, like I guess fast forward almost a year, I guess, then that of course is something that has, now it's, a lot of things that happen, right? Not just of the relationship that we built, but also common connections through you that now they're, for example, our clients that we've been able to work together. So naturally there's a lot of good, goodwill, just by, that initial connection, right? And I think that's something that becomes, as I was mentioning earlier, right? Like that becomes increasingly harder to foster those types of relationships because again everyone is very much like super fast paced, like speed, like hey, I need an intro for whatever it is. And then that usually dilutes kind of like the value of what an intro really means, right? And again, because of the so much noise that it's out there, there's a ton of different tools that fundamentally do or try to do the same thing. And people think because they're depending on a tool, they're actually building this, which is our relationship. And that's again, no, you have to take the time to build it, understand each other, and then from there, a lot of things can happen, right? Again, it goes back to the trust core. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because yeah, I remember when we met for the first time. Um, that conversation was like how can like basically get to know each other, how can we help each other, um, and at the time I already had the idea of itogai and was already sort of like I guess putting my thoughts together.
Hmm.
And I knew that eventually, because I'm not a technical person, I knew that eventually I was going to need help on the technical side. I was also going to need help like creating a logo, creating a brand.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I have this other business called Sasmarai.
Yep.
It took me probably like 3 full weekends to
Hmm.
to work on the logo.
Yeah.
I spent probably 40 hours
Mm.
uh, on that
Yeah,
logo.
like going back and forth, and yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like me and Canva and like trying to figure it
Mm.
out. And the logo was absolute shit. But
Hmm.
I was so proud of what I built. And then um, when I pieced my mind together and had a working prototype in terms of like a vision, a idea, what I
Hmm.
wanted to do, uh, like Mavity didn't even come to mind. Like
Hmm.
I had discussed, and actually there were three companies that I reached out to. One of them was you. You were actually the last one
Hmm.
where I was already like. ready to make a decision.
Mm,
Um, I was speaking to, so it's two portfolio companies, and one of them is Evan, and the other one is Juan Pablo. They're both
mhm,
U.S. companies, and I was telling them about the idea about itogai. They was like, "Oh, this is amazing! Hey, dude, like, I'd be happy to refer you to a couple of people that I know." So Evan referred me to this gentleman in Germany, and Juan Pablo referred me to this gentleman in Colombia, and I had a
mhm,
conversation with them. I actually uh, got a proposal from them,
mhm,
and I basically, because of my seller side, I built at now as a buyer, I built this RFP as like, okay, these are the things that I care about,
mhm.
and a big piece of that was the content piece. Like I need a logo, yada yada. I need a
Yeah.
website, blah blah
Mhm,
blah. And like in terms of the software, they both of these companies they did great jobs. They had great products, but I kind of felt like I was missing the
mhm,
creative piece.
mhm.
And I hadn't mapped Mavity at all here. I
Yeah.
remember that I was having a conversation with Guillermo, and I was like, "Yeah, dude. So I have these proposals. Because yes, it's like, how's Ito guy going?" It's like, "Oh man, like, eh, I have these proposals, but I kind of feel that I need an agency to help with the creative part. The product is all good."
Mhm,
It's like, dude, have you spoken to Tomas? I was like,
mhm,
no. It's like, well,
mm.
that is exactly what they do. Why
Yeah.
haven't you talked to Tomas? So
Yeah.
I remember you and I had a conversation. I was like, "Hey, Tomas, hey, me again."
Mhm,
Um, and then you, you of course gave me a proposal, and I remember that I didn't talk about the product side of things because I
mhm,
felt that I needed help with
mhm.
more on the brand and creative side. And then I
Yeah.
bring Gizmo again. It's like, how did it go with Tomas?
Mhm,
It's like, oh, it's great,
mhm,
then. But
mhm,
I think I'm gonna go with them for the creative part, and then I'm gonna do the product with another company. I was like,
mhm,
why? Like, why would you do that? Why not do everything with
mhm.
Tomas? And it's like, wait, does Tomas do that? So then we talked again, and it was
Yeah.
funny because like I didn't even ask. He said it's like, uh, if something happens to me, I'll gladly leave my kids with Tomas. And that
Yeah.
was like, he didn't have to say anything more. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, Tomas, let's go. Let's do it. Let's start working together. And it's been almost a year. And
Mhm,
for folks listening, we like a couple of a couple of days ago, we just landed an agreement to extend our working relationship for an
mhm,
entire full year.
mhm,
Uh, and that to me is very special because I don't feel as just having an agency helping
mhm.
out. I feel like this is a real partnership.
Yeah,
And
completely.
before the execution of, hey, we need
Mhm,
this fixed, or we need to develop this and that, I
mhm.
kind of feel that I'm building with friends. Like the
Yeah,
relationship is so
co-building.
strong that, yeah, man, and it's so special. And I think that that is
Mhm.
where relationships are so absolutely critical
Yeah.
to just getting around
Mhm.
life and the day to
Yeah,
day.
completely. I think that's also an important thing from our side because we've been like, as you know, Mavity again has evolved a lot over time, and me as a co-founder or as a founder, as a CEO, I've also learned different things, right? In terms of what I want or what I don't want to do, because of course we're VC backed, and that gives certain like specific, let's say, pressures or expectations that I have to commit to, while also understanding that I really love to work with people, right? I mean, and that's why we decidedly said we're going to have two revenue streams, two business models. One of them is going to be service managed services operations, and then product and technology, because we love to build product and we love to we love technology, right? And that's actually the intersection between thinking and interacting with people and building or co-building, while also having a product that can scale, adventure scale, right? And of course that's always a bet. I mean, you well know, I mean, you've been an investor, you work a lot with investors as an investor with startups, and you know that sometimes products simply it's very hard for a product to be successful, right? But it's still very exciting, like the building process, like from zero to one. I think that's some of the most like exciting moments of company building, right? And that's why I really like working directly with startups, with entrepreneurs. Even though it's very volatile, right? I mean, again, we know you never know what's going to happen, right? A new, I don't know, hopefully not pandemic, but anyway, a lot of things can happen. You never know how how people react to that, how users react to that. But I think just connecting that with the reason of this conversation is that you still end up going to the same people, like your own core network, the whole trust circle that you have, where you're all right. I got to figure out how to pivot. I got to figure out how to get myself out of this challenge that I have. You reach out to your trust circle, and then you start growing again from there. And yeah, I mean, I think it's always you end up going back to your network, right? That's how you continue to build. And that's the fun part, right? Not just being super transactional. We have a ton of different clients like that, which they're all okay. I love you, clients, if you're listening. But of course, there's some favorite ones, right? So because again, it's a different type of relationship that gets you excited to build. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, um, what do you think when you think about the word or the concept of trust bound?
I think that it's beyond making it like a thing, like a noun. I think it's more of an action, right? It's a proactive um like a forward facing action, right? So it's not just something that you establish and then it exists like a common denominator across two people or among a network, but it's something that you proactively do in order to move people forward or for upward mobility, right? Bound naturally means that there's movement and evolution, right? And I think the idea that everything that you are doing and that itogai is based upon is, even though again products might evolve and change, right? Today might be something, tomorrow might be another, but the core mission or vision of it, which is trust bound, means that the idea is how can we help people get together, build trust, or trustworthy relationships, and help them get business done, right? Or their own personal objectives. And I think that's kind of like the not just what it means to me as a founder, but also just as a person, right? Going back to the whole idea of how do I keep actually in touch with people in my network? Like, it's enough for me. Like, I have, let's say, two main WhatsApp groups. One of them is like with my entire family. The other one is my with my friends from high school. Those are the two main ones that we try to keep tabs on. But beyond that, I have, I don't know how many hundreds of groups or conversations that I've never went back to, right? And I know that I have them for a specific reason. Like, perhaps in one point in time it was interesting or appealing to me, but then I never followed up. That other person never followed up. So it's not so much as a thing that you see on a CRM. It's more of a thing that you should have ingrained in your own system of fostering relationships. And I think today, going back to my whole point at the beginning, there's a lot of noise. And how do you cut through that noise? I think it's building an ecosystem platform that can actually help you be proactive around that trust bound.
Yeah, that's. I think you hit the nail in the head, and I also have like certain like VIP groups,
Hmm.
uh, and it's funny because I, I I feel that life happens and then things change, and you stop seeing your friends every single day, and then time goes by, and it happens to me all the time where I see a friend after a couple of months because
Hmm.
we don't even live in the same country anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just feels as if time stood still,
Hmm.
and just the relationship, like nothing has changed from the relationship. Like the love
Hmm.
is still there, the respect is still there, the trust
Hmm.
is still there. And I think that beyond business, that is the like one of the pleasures in life, like
Hmm.
having people that are very close to you, that you're very close to them regardless if they're blood or no blood,
Hmm.
um, and just being present for them, and them being present for you,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, that core trust circle, or or the trust circles that you're always going to go back to,
Hmm.
because there is no hidden agenda, and
Yeah.
there is no like there's nothing that tells you or makes you feel as if they're using you for
Hmm.
something specific. It's just
Hmm.
love, respect, and trust. And to me,
Yeah.
that's very, very special.
Completely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's very powerful. And something that I think you'll learn. I mean, at least in my own personal experience, when I moved to New York, um, the kind of like the circumstances were all about like meeting, hundreds of different people from different like backgrounds, not just where I came from, which was Colombia, which is of course primarily only just Colombians in the same circle that you grew up with all your life, right? But then being in New York, the whole thing is about networking, right? And people are just in such a, you know, uh, again, it's a very like high pace, like fast environment that you have to. All right, how am I going to network here? How am I going to build my, professional network, and build, what I want to build here, right? So it is a muscle that you have to practice, but again, it all starts with like some seedlings, right? Like you're watering the garden, and you have to plant those seeds and little by little start fostering them, right? There were some analogies that we were using more internally within the product around that, right? Like you're watering these seeds, and little by little you start seeing how those relationships foster over time. That's something that, for example, if any international student that is coming to the US and to build up professional network here, that's, I would say, Trustbound, itogai, that's kind of the first thing that you got to build, right? Start building your relationship, your relationships, your network, because you never know when the time comes. You're going to be very like using these connections in a very thoughtful way for your own benefit, of course.
Definitely. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for that, Tomas. Before we wrap up, and I said that this wasn't going to be a podcast to promote the platform, but rather the motion behind it. Uh, and given that we are honored to have you as the
Mhm.
first guest in our podcast. Uh, where can people contact you and learn more about Mavity? Because you said
Mhm.
earlier that, of course, like every single conversation that I have with anybody in my network that mentions anything regarding, hey, I need help with like developing something, or with a website, with creative, I was
Mhm.
like, dude, you got to talk to Mavity.
Mhm.
Just talk to Mavity. Here, I'll
Mhm.
intro you to Tomas, have a conversation,
Mhm.
and then you guys evaluate if you could be a good fit. But
Mhm.
so I said that I wasn't going to talk so much about itogai. It was more about Trustbound. But what I didn't say is that I
Mhm.
was not going to promote my friends.
Mhm.
So I'm going to promote Mavity as if anybody wants to build a product, wants to enhance their product, or wants help anything creative wise. If you
Mhm.
go to itogai.com, the logo, the website, the brand, everything was built by Mavity. So where
Mhm.
could they contact you and get in touch with Mavity, Tomas?
I appreciate that. Everyone can visit mavity.co. We have, yeah, I mean, people can just go there, see what the product is, but people can also sign up, or book a call with me directly. I love to have those early conversations with people that are thinking about building something. So we have that managed services option where we just discuss and see, as you pointed out, if it's a good fit, and then hopefully work for the long term. So yeah, just visit us mavity.co, or look me up on LinkedIn, Tomás Uribe, and then yeah, we'll chat from there.
Awesome. Tomas, as always, thank you so much for not just the time here today, but the time invested in Itogai and our relationship, and all the blood, sweat, tears, effort, and
Hmm.
looking forward to not just continuing the business relationship or business partnership, but the personal side of the friendship, that is what's most special.
Hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, Mauricio. I appreciate the invite, and yeah, looking forward to all the upcoming episodes too. All right.
Thanks. And with that, it's a wrap. That was episode 2 of the Trustbound podcast. If this resonated, pay attention to where trust has already been doing the work for you. That's where momentum starts. Learn more at itogai.com. See you next time. I'm Mauricio Suarez, and this is the Trustbound Podcast.